The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Let us pray. Almighty and ever-living God, source of all wisdom and understanding, be present with those who take counsel at St. Peter's Church today for the renewal and mission of your church. Teach us in all things to seek first your honor and glory. Guide us to perceive what is right, and grant us both the courage to pursue it and the grace to accomplish it. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. You may be seated. Those of you who would like to visit the little deacon's room are welcome to do so as you need. Our agenda can be found on page 36 of your bulletin. The next item on the agenda is the election of a secretary. I will entertain nominations at this time for secretary of this meeting.
I nominate Kelly Mallett.
Is it second? Is there a movement to close nominations? Second? All those in favor of Kelly being our secretary for this meeting? Those who are opposed or abstaining? A big surprise, I'm sure.
I am flabbergasted.
In your meeting packet, you will find the minutes of our meeting from 2021 on page 8 and 9. Would someone like to move to receive it? Moved by Stu. Is there a second? Oh, that was Kevin, or no, Tim. Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. The opposed or abstaining? I would like to ask the senior warden to come forward at this time to announce the results of the election. I want to say a special word of thanks before the names are announced to all of the candidates who ran. It was a close election, but what was most exciting is the number of folks who are new to the parish, who are willing to step forward in service to our community. And so I want to thank all 7 who ran for the 4 slots.
First of all, I want to thank everybody for sending in their You can't hear me? Can you now? That's because then the microphone must not be working.
Andrew, are we on? Yes. Okay.
Am I on now?
Yes.
And you have to leave the church. I want to thank all of you who sent in your ballots. We had a good showing of votes. The votes were all close. And we're hoping that those who did not make the vestry for this 4-year stint, next year when we have elections, will consider running again. But we're very happy with the 4 who will be going on. The 4, and would you please stand if you're here? And I would expect that you would be. Chip Beaverson. Robert Gottwalt. Debbie Gensch. And Kevin Morgan. And the nice thing was that the 3 who were not elected all offered and wanted to know ways that they could become more involved in St. Peter's and the life at this church. So that was a positive sign, and we want to thank you all for participating.
Thank you, Madam Senior Ward. This time, I'd like to say a special word of thanks. Sue, just stay right up here. To the retiring members of our vestry, we have been blessed by their leadership and by their service to our church. Most of them are gluttons for punishment, which means they've served 2 terms back to back. And in fact, Sue and Tracy have served so much that I'm out of St. Peter's gifts to give them that they don't already have. So Tracy, if you'd come forward at this time. Sue and Tracy have both served as wardens of this parish on multiple occasions. They have been stalwarts in their support of the vestry and of me. They constantly make sure that I take care of myself and that they look out for all of the staff of St. Peter's. I don't know what else to say except we were blessed to have two wonderful leaders. And so on behalf of the congregation, I'd like to present you each with these crosses. We have two other members who are going off. First of all, John Mears has been active in supporting the vestry in multiple roles, most recently working with Invite, Welcome, and Connect here in our parish, helping us to incorporate new members and to make our congregation more welcoming. John, if you would come forward at this time. And also, we're celebrating the gift of ministry of Lewes Powell, who for her 3 years on vestry has worked with worship and music and done a fantastic job of coordinating St. Cecilia's Guild with TJ and with the committee and with all the rich liturgical life that we have at St. Peter's. So Lois. And finally, we have another member of our leadership team who is retiring this year. He has only served one term as treasurer, but I think anybody who knows that that is probably the equivalent of at least 5 terms as treasurer through this time of pandemic, through this time of the capital campaign, to this time of acquisition of new property for the church, through this time of grants and filing legal things for us to get the benefits of the PPP loan and all of that. Bruce, we could not have had a better man at the helm for these last 3 years. Bruce, if you would come forward at this time. For all of you, after you've had a little time of rest, you're always welcome back. There are a variety of annual reports. We can either have them read in their entirety, or a motion is in order to receive them by title. Shock, quelle surprise. All those in favor in receiving all of the reports? Opposed, abstaining. I do want to say a special word of thanks to all of you who put them together and to Kelly for formatting them and compiling this. It is an incredible document that we have here about the rich life here at St. Peter's. And I have to tell you that when I go to lunch with new members of the parish, they're always impressed by the efforts that we're doing in so many different places. And they get excited about being part of it. And so thank you for helping us. And my apologies to any organization that was inadvertently overlooked. If you think that there's something missing in the book, please do speak to Kelly or me, and we will make sure that it's included next year. Now, on to item number 7, which is the rector's report, which was the sermon. So if you were at any of the services this weekend, you heard it. If there's really nothing more that I can say than what was included in that. So moving on to number 8, the Open Door Capital Campaign. I want to direct your attention to the last couple of pages in the report, pages 40 through 43. I know not all of us are used to reading plans, and I know that that can be daunting, but I do want to ask you to be patient. We're going to have a member of the vestry come forward. Randy Burton is not just a local contractor, but has been part of this congregation for over 50 years. He was raised here as a small boy and has grown up in the church and has a deep and abiding love for this parish. And I can think of no one better to talk about our vision for what is going to come next. As I said during the sermon, we have three particular challenges that we're trying to keep in mind. It's not just what do we need to do as a congregation, what are the needs that we have, but also what are the financial realities that we're living with, and how can we fit into the historic quality of this neighborhood and not do anything that detracts away from that. I think we can all agree that we did a fantastic job with what we have done in phase 1. And we want to do the same with phase 2. So Randy, if you want to come up to the lectern at this time, you can walk us through these plans.
Can I bring my associate?
You can bring your, or legal counsel if you need that. Mark Chor is our owner's rep, and he has been working with us all along through many different plans. I just want to hasten to say to you that the plans that Randy's going to speak of are not the final plan. So if you're looking at this, and you're really passionate about wanting to have an electrical outlet on a particular wall, this is not the time for that. This is just a broad brush overview. So Randy?
Thank you, Father Jeff. So as Father Jeff spoke to in his sermon earlier today, if we just take a minute to look at this space, and any of us who were here prior to the pandemic can see the incredible transformation that began with the replacement of the pews, and then it evolved into the expansion of the sanctuary, additional area for choir, expansion of the altar. And if you have not been through the undercroft and the lower area of the church, please go there and see all that this guy right here, Mark Chura, who is our owner's rep, who between he and Bruce Bollender did the yeoman's work to get us to this point that we are now. The space that we have captured has allowed us to revision what the future of the rest of the campus here, or what we call St. Peter's Square, is. And what you have to understand is, as we were discussing at vestry, those of us who have walked onto this campus over the last 2 weeks, 2 years, 20 years, 50 years, 70 years, have entered it from different locations than what the future vision is for the campus. We have to understand that there are pieces that we want to hold on to that we think are near and dear to our experience here on the campus. But in 20 years or 50 years, that experience, that lens that we're looking through now, is not what those in the future will be looking through. It'll be their experience of the campus. So with that, and I've been involved with this, fortunate to be involved. I shouldn't say it so dreadedly, right? I mean, I have been fortunate to be involved both in St. Peter's, a blessing in my life for the last 58 years, I think is what Father Jeff was trying to get out there. And I've seen a lot of transformation, and I have seen the evolution over the last 5.5 years of the vision of where we are going. And this, what we see on paper here, takes into consideration the best of everything that we have now and how we can revision the space that exists and do it with the most economical return on the investment that we're going to put into it. And it is still, I don't stand here naively, nor do I believe any member of the vestry or any member of the staff that it is not a tall order that we have before us. But as one of our new members of the vestry said in our retreat when we were talking about this, it's achievable. We have to have faith. We have to believe that we can do it. And that's what we are. We're a community of faith. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to repurpose the Heart House and the Parish Hall and reorient the entire campus of St. Peter's Square. And it'll be a beautiful thing and a blessing for us to all pass on to everyone. So how's that work? It's pretty simple. We just change everything that we know. Any questions? Seriously, how it works is we start with the Heart House, which is what we previously knew as the rectory. It is not. It will become the administrative space and the educational space for both youth and for old people like myself and others that are sitting in the audience, those of us that contribute to the effort and the purpose of St. Peter's. So the ground floor becomes administrative offices. The second floor becomes youth space. We put an elevator in there because as we all age, we need to be able to get up and down more easily. The entrance to St. Peter's Square, if you look at this, the back, what we now know as the back of the rectory becomes a corridor from Mulberry Street to 2nd Street. You enter the space off of Mulberry. You come into the administrative offices and the youth space off of what we now know as the rear of the rectory, the Heart House, the future administration educational space. You can also pass into, not to go too far in advance, but when we turn the page and we start looking at the community hall, you pass into the community hall in what has been a broom closet, a chair storage, a bookstore. What other things in just the last 18 years? TJ's office. And that connects us through, so there's a sight line now from Mulberry Street all the way through to the Labyrinth that connects all of the spaces of the campus. And really, we have to hand it to Mark because one of the ways that we were able to achieve the beginning of all of this connectivity of the campus, for those of you who have walked out back and seen what was created out here on the ground, I mean, what used to be a stumbling path that so many of us used all of the time with rocks and dirt and some gravestones in the way is now, I walk my dog by there. It's amazing to me at 11 o'clock at night that you can see people sitting on that bench meditating sometimes. What a gift, not only to us, but to the community. I'm going quickly because I don't think that there's, as Jeff said, we're not going to talk about receptacles. We're not going to talk about exactly where the kitchen sink goes, exactly how the bathroom goes. This is about a greater vision. When we move into, if you turn to page 42 and 43, this is probably the most jarring portion of all of this, right? So we set out as a mission to create accessibility for everyone to both floors of the parish hall. We've looked at this in multiple different realms, this we being just Mark and I and some draftsmen, Mark and I and some architects, Mark and I and Father Jeff and the rest of the committee, and then the vestry as a whole, and then the community as a whole. And this is the best of all that we have to work with. And it probably causes people the most concern. We're changing the elevation of Mulberry Street. We're changing the entrance to the parish hall. The primary entrance to the parish hall, you have to imagine, is now inside of the courtyard. This is really a secondary entrance that what you see off of Mulberry Street, where the stairs are created, and then there is an elevator that's inside of that space that gets you from the parish hall level to the full bottom of the basement level. Not to that, like the question's been asked, well, is that only going to get you to that spot and then you're going to have 3 steps to go down? Because you know how when we walk down the steps now, we get down to where the bathroom is in the basement just before we're all the way down in the use space, and then we have 2 more steps. The elevator is going to go all the way down to that lower level. The space that we now call the spy room, the step-up room, where the storage area, the dry storage area is, will still be elevated. But it may be envisioned that maybe it becomes a theater space. Wouldn't it be great if we had theater productions that we could offer to our youth and to the community, that we could have a concert going on in here, and we could have a theater production with the children of the community or some outside group that's performing in there, so that entire ground floor becomes a whole additional usable space, primarily for our unbelievable choir that is such an attractant to St. Peter's Church, right? How many people have joined this church in recent times because of that? So, and then we transform the main living space or the main area of the parish hall into not just one meeting space, one community hall, but 2, what is now Father Jeff's office and Kelly's office, and the bathrooms and everything that is on that original old wing that I may have climbed out of a window or 2 during Sunday school many, many years ago, is being transformed into another meeting space that has direct connectivity to this new corridor that connects from Mulberry Street to 2nd Street to the front of St. Peter's Church. That's all I have, Father Jeff. I'm open to questions. Mark, I'm sure probably has some more technical things.
Randy missed?
No, the only thing is that the program plan...
Use the microphone because we got people watching at home.
Hi, everyone. The only thing that I'd add to that, and thank you, Randy, for the kind words and the excellent job, and, you know, he's responsible for so much of this. You're being very modest. Thank you for everything. Please. Thank you. The program plan for this in any kind of a design, when you're working on a new project, is understanding the needs of the community you're serving. And this plan has gone through a lot of different iterations over the last 5 years. But I think the core of it, serving the future needs of this community, is encapsulated in all this. And it's done, I think, in the most efficient and cost-effective way that we could figure it out. So.
Just want to say, you know, we've gone back and forth about what to do with the parish hall, but it was when the property on the corner of 2nd Street became available, and we realized that we were able to use the Hart House not just as a rectory, but at the time in 2005 when I came, it was designed not just to be workable as a rectory, but also as offices. And we realized that we could save considerable amount of money, $2 million, by putting more money in the Hart House or into the parish hall, and not having to, if we don't change the physicality of it as much, we're really hoping that we're not going to trigger so many issues with planning and zoning. So I know we've gone back and forth on this, but now we really feel that this vision is the best stewardship of all the property that we have. From the very beginning, we've been approaching the property as a whole, not as individuals, and trying to think about how each building communicates and connects to others. And the permeability of taking down the gates here on the back of the property and the new walkway enables our St. Peter's Square to become an entry point where people feel welcome to walk through and can enjoy. And we want to capitalize on that in how we restore the buildings. Tracy, I think you had a question?
Did I say Mulberry? I'm sorry. So I confused everybody then. The connectivity comes in off of 3rd Street. I meant to say not Mulberry Street. So thank you for correcting me on that, Tracy. If you look at the rear, just to clarify that, if you look on page 41 at the Hart House, you'll see where it says greeting foyer. There will be, and one of the first things we will do is to remove the fencing that is at the rear of the Hart House as it exists now, and it connects to the parish hall, and begin to create that connectivity coming in off of 3rd Street and orienting itself to the parish hall. Does that make sense now? Sorry about that.
Other questions?
John.
John Michael?
Just wondering, looking at the picture of the community hall on page 42.
Yes.
Is there going to be a handicap ramp also going up to that entrance?
No. The primary entrance, again, currently ever since I was a small boy, the entrance into the parish hall came in off of Mulberry Street. That will be there, and you can go up and down stairs, but you would otherwise come around into the courtyard, or you would enter off of 3rd Street to get to the level ground of the level of the parish hall that we all know as a community hall space and administrative offices, and that's where the elevator would be accessed. We had to create an access point to the lower level of the parish hall, what is now the youth room, somehow, and the only place that we could effectively make that work is in this corner. If you look, John, on page 42, there are a set of stairs that go up to a landing. That's where the entrance is going to be, and there are a set of stairs that go down to the lower level. But if you had mobility issues, you would come in to the courtyard, enter through the 2 doors as we have now, or you would come in off of 3rd Street and enter into what will be a corridor through the parish hall.
Thank you. I asked the question correctly. I was actually should have asked more, is will there be accessibility? Because I do not read these things well.
Yeah, no, there will be 2 points that there will be accessibility for anyone with mobility issues. That point is not Mulberry Street.
So this all comes under the adage, you can have anything, but you can't have it all at once.
Correct.
And when we did this building, many of us desperately wanted to replace the staircase that's over here. They're very treacherous, but unfortunately, the way the fire marshal has written the code and the way that works is that we would have had to move 27 graves. And the way that works in Delaware is we'd have to find every one of their descendants and get permission to exhume the bodies of those people and move them. So in the same way, in the parish hall, what Randy's talking about is the challenge of holding on to open space in the building and not losing it to the elevator. And the only solution that we could find was to push those stairs outside. Is it what we want? Not really. But is it what we can live with and still hold on to large open space and do other things to allow accessibility? Yes. And so that's the trade-off that these plans are calling for. I know that there are things individually that we're all passionate about, but what the vestry is charged with doing and coming up with these plans with Mark and with Randy is to try to find the best balance we can, recognizing nothing will be perfect, but we cannot let the perfect be the enemy of the good. So, other questions? We have a microphone. It's coming to you, Suzanne. So this is so folks at home can hear.
I'm hoping this is not a, excuse me, an outlet question. But because we're on the subject of accessibility, will there be accessible stalls in the bathrooms?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. It's a code requirement, and even if it was not, we would certainly make sure that that was the case.
Okay, wonderful.
Other questions? Again, this is a building that we're envisioning not just for our use as a parish, but for what we share with the community, for outside groups that come. So we have to take that into consideration.
Well, and that's a great point that Father Jeff makes, that when we look at this plan, one of the things that I think that I can honestly say the vestry was excited about last week and really saw as purposeful is that we would now, in effect, between the room that we use for EFM and conferences and Zoom downstairs, plus the newly discovered undercroft space, the choir room, the 2 meeting spaces in the parish hall, and the new administrative area, you could have, in effect, have 6 different groups meeting on this campus, uninterrupted by one another when this vision is completed. And that's pretty unbelievable relative to where we've been, because 3 years ago, the most you could have would be 2 groups uninterrupted.
If you look just a section at page 43, I want to tell you what I'm most excited about, because I'm the rector, I get to do that. It has been my passion since I came here in 2005 to have adult ed and to model to our children that adult ed is something that is part of all of our Christian life, not something just for kids. And one of the challenges has been we have a really wonderful coffee hour, but the coffee hour makes it impossible to have adult ed classes at the same time. And so this meeting space that's going in where the offices is going to be really exciting. It'll be where we can have adult ed after the 10 o'clock service, but during the 10 o'clock service, it'll also be a place where the Iona service will take place with young families. And what Randy's vision is, which I think is so exciting, is just as we have that Palladium window at the end of the parish hall, we'll do something similar at the end of where our offices is. So that where you sit, when you sit in that room and worship, you're going to be looking right at the beautiful church. And you're going to feel connected, even though you're in a different building. You're going to feel connected to the worship that's going on there and part of the family of the church. And that space will just be a tremendous resource, as Randy said, to help us be able to realize having multiple things going at the same time. So, any other questions? Yes, Carol. Wait a sec, here comes your microphone.
I think this looks terrific. And maybe what I'm going to ask about is something for the future, but have you considered solar panels for
Yes.
this?
So here's the thing. When you put solar panels on the roof, you have to have a young roof. The roof that is on the parish hall is not a young roof. Young roof. It's coming to the end of its life. So the plan is that once we do these renovations, we're trying to get the maximum life out of the roof. Once the renovations are done, then we can come back and put solar on there when we put a brand new roof on top of it. But that'll be the end of the campaign, not the beginning at this point.
And to be clear, we had an evaluation done. I mean, Mark brought in a group who did an evaluation of all of the roofs of both the new rectory, the Hart House, and the parish hall in consideration and evaluation. Is this the time to do that? It is not, and hopefully the technology will advance even farther, because how long solar panels actually last is yet to be determined.
We also did an evaluation for geothermal, and which has been wonderful for many of the parishes. The diocese would really like us to do it. St. Philip's over in Laurel has had an excellent experience. They've cut their energy budget to a quarter of what it used to be. The problem for us is we lack the space to go down.
Right.
We have buried people just about everywhere you can bury them here on St. Peter's Square. And so we probably will not be able to take advantage of that, nor would the city really let us put up a windmill, although I love windmills. But
Maybe an old
but
Dutch
that will be part of the challenge. Bruce?
I might add that the Financial Advisory Committee did an extensive evaluation from a financial perspective of the solar panel proposal. And if you're not a taxpayer, which we're not, the investment purely from a financial perspective, it's a mediocre investment. If you are a taxpayer and can use the tax credits, then it's a good investment. And adding in premature replacement of the roof, it became not a very good financial investment. But when the time comes, as Randy said, to replace the roofs, we will certainly look at it again.
Our thinking is that the Hart House and the rectory will need to be replaced about the same time. So that's where we're gearing up. And maybe even the rectory across the street. So. Other questions? Yes, Libby.
If I'm ahead of where you want to be, I apologize and you don't need to answer this. When you were talking about extending the facilities so that other organizations could avail themselves of the spaces, and your $2 million estimate, is that correct? Did I read that right?
That's correct.
Are you going to be able, because you're looking to use some of this space for other organizations, are you going to be able to apply to foundations for any funding?
We are absolutely hoping to do that.
That's an excellent question, and I'd like to not have him answer that as much as what I've been harping on for the last 2.5 years. We, as a parish, absolutely need to go to foundations. However, in order for us to do that, we need greater participation in the contributions. And that can be $1 or $5 or $10. We're not looking for everybody to double dip with the funds, but when we go to foundations to get foundational money, one of the first questions that they're going to want to know is, how is the participation of the members of your parish? And if we say to them, it's 35% or 37%, they'll probably say, no thank you, but if you come back with 80 or 90% participation, and in my years of being involved in different things, and Libby can speak to this very clearly as well, they don't ask how much did each of those members give. They ask if they gave. So if it's a young family that doesn't have a lot of extra money, they can give $1. They can give $5, because it really matters on that next level of getting contributive funds beyond the borders of St. Peter's. And it is absolutely part of our vision and effort to reach out to the community beyond our family here at St. Peter's, of both Lewes, Sussex County, the state of Delaware, and again, our fantastic owner's rep. I mean, you know, we were able to get state highway money for this work that was done out back. That's thinking outside the box. This gentleman brought $45,000 to the table, brought to us generously. I'm not going to make a political statement, so I won't say, by a couple of our senators, so who will remain anonymous. But it's a great question, Libby, and it's important that we all, I'm not the fundraising guy, right? We'll have to leave that to that committee, who I'm sure will be calling on you soon.
We are not asking people who have made a gift before to make another gift. If you want to do that, God will love you. But he will love you either way. But we are going to intentionally try to get our percentage up so that we can go to these foundations and say, you know, the parish believes in what we're doing, and they've supported it, whether it's a small gift or a large gift. Every little bit will help. So, thanks, Libby. Other questions? All right. Oh, please. Here comes the microphone. Hold on a second. Just one of those things we do for Zooming and YouTubing and Facebook Living.
So what are the timing, the aspirations relative to timing to break ground? And is the thought that both buildings would be worked on concurrently or in succession, or am I just simply too far ahead of ourselves at this point?
You're not overly ahead of yourself, so I can give you the sequence of construction, and the timing will be based upon the completion of a collection of, we'll have about $80,000, I think it is, left over from phase 1 contributions to kick off this campaign. That's somewhere in that neighborhood. The way that the sequence would work would be that we would go to the Heart House and do the interior work and the Heart House first, so that we can then move all of staff into the Heart House. Once that work is complete, we would then move into the, what I'll call, administrative wing of the parish hall, completing that. So if you look at page 43, completing what is from the foyer, the stairs, the new storage area, the bathrooms, and the meeting space, what is currently our administrative offices in the parish hall. That would be transformed next. Then we would go down into the choir area on, on your page 42, and the lower level and elevator stair area would be accomplished at that point. And then we would wrap up with the main floor of the community hall, what we all know as just the parish hall space. So that's kind of the sequential vision. We'd like to think that we will have the generosity of parishioners and the community at large that would allow us to get the entire project done over the next 24 months. When that starts, so if we could start tomorrow, if we had one generous gift this week, Mark is just waiting to get rolling. And we would be able, permitting would probably take us about 3 months, and then we would get started. So it's the vision is that it would be a winter, early spring start. We have some other facilities of finance that are available to us. I'm not going to get in the weeds with all of that. So depending upon how phase 2 capital campaign kicks off, it's 24, 30 months from now is the vision that it would all be finished. That's my aggressive vision. The good rector might tell you that it's...
No, I think that's spot on. And part of the hope that is in these plans is that we are, unlike when we did this addition, we're not going to have a lot that we need to go before H Park and other organizations in the city. The only real thing will be the entrance on Mulberry Street. So the interior changes that we want to make, we will have a lot more latitude to do because they won't be externally visually. And as you know, you've read the newspapers, you know what's going on. We want to try to be good neighbors as best we can and to be minimally disruptive to the historic nature of the portion of 2nd Street that we occupy. So, one more question.
Has any plan been made for how we're going to function when construction on these various buildings are taking place?
Yes, we have a wonderful member. Her name's Tracy Mulvaney. She's invited us to come over to her house for bathrooms and for... yes, there will be plans for that. What that will almost certainly mean is that for a portion of time, there will probably be something parked in the driveway of the Heart House for bathrooms while the bathrooms are being renovated. Because we We can't stop, just as when we worked in here, even though we didn't know COVID was coming, we had a plan to be able to still worship even in the midst of this space. So in the same way, we need to keep doing the mission and ministry of this parish even while we're under construction. And that's why the checkerboard process that Randy was describing of us moving from one place to the other is going to be so crucially important so that we don't stop ourselves from being able to use our space. All right. Well, thank you to these two wonderful gentlemen. And returning to our agenda on page 36, over to the proposed budget for 2023 and our treasurer, Bruce.
Thank you, Father Jeff. And before I begin, I want to say that I am one of those who has absolute faith that we will be able to raise the money to finance this project. And even though I'm the treasurer, I'm perhaps one of the most aggressive on pushing us to move forward with the construction because I know we can pay it, and I have absolute faith that that we will raise the money needed to finish the final phases of the project when the time comes. As Father Jeff mentioned, this is the last of my 3 years as treasurer, and it's been an interesting time to say the least. And I reflected back on as I was preparing my remarks on where we were. In 2020, I delivered this report sitting at my kitchen table over Zoom. Last year, in 2021, I looked out at a smaller crowd, all wearing masks, and it was less than 2 months after I'd buried my wife. This year, I'm pleased to see a large group sitting here, and pleased to say that this parish is in excellent financial health despite all the challenges. I'll leave it to others more capable than I to address the spiritual health of the parish, but I think they will say the same thing. There have been a lot of challenges: the pandemic, the open door construction expanded, as Randy and Mark alluded to a little bit, from just what you can see up here to all the work we did downstairs, and it is a fantastic addition to the church, but it wasn't part of the original budget. We've gone through two substantial declines in the stock market. The first right after COVID in 2020, and I think a lot of you are familiar with the current bear market that we're experiencing, and this time it's not just the stock market, but an investment in 10-year Treasury notes is an equally poor investment as investing in the stock market. But we are invested for the long term, and the vestry and more importantly, the Financial Advisory Committee is taking a long view of our financial situation. I like to remind people we are investing for eternity, certainly not just our lifetimes, but for all those who come after us. Despite the challenges, it's been an immensely rewarding experience for me, and I am turning responsibility over to Minnie Shorter, who is sitting right back. Minnie, would you stand up so everyone can see you? I know your finances will be in capable hands, and I'm not quite done. I have another 6 months as chair of the Financial Advisory Committee before my term there is up. I will be brief about the budget. My report is on page 38, and my written report is on page 38 and 39. The budget is balanced. Despite we tried to keep everything we could control, on a relatively tight budget for increases. There are some things just beyond our control. interest rates have gone up. That has affected us a little bit on some of our debt. And the cost of propane will probably be over budget by a factor of 100% on propane, and just things have gone up because of inflation. We've also budgeted increases for the rector and staff based upon recommendations from the diocese, which are about twice the increases we had last year. But given the inflation we've experienced in the past year, the vestry and I thought it was appropriate. We can continue to operate despite these increases in costs without drawing too heavily on our endowment. We have strived over the last 3 years to not to draw on our endowment at a rate that is not sustainable in the long term. We want to preserve our endowment for future vestries and for future congregations to have the benefit of the generosity of those who've come before. And despite the declines in the stock market, our endowment still and our drawing 4 to 5% out of our endowment each year, our endowment still stands where it was 3 years ago, and I look forward to improvement in the stock market and seeing our endowment up again. I would have liked to say the endowment was 20% higher than it was when I started here, but unfortunately we had a 20% decline in the stock market this year, so I can't say that. And the markets continue to be volatile. I gave you a report as to where we were at the end of September with our endowment and the written report. In October it was up 9%, but just this past week it's down 2.5%. It's just it is more volatile than I remember in my lifetime of following the financial markets. So I do want to point out on an somewhat unrelated subject, there's an error in the bulletin about the required minimum distribution out of IRAs. It says if you turn 72.5 this year, you have to start. It's actually 72. So anybody who read that and thinks they don't have to start this year, I apologize to you. But we hope it's a great way to make donations, not just to St. Peter's, but whatever other charitable organizations you support. I'm happy to entertain any questions from the audience, either now or if you want to just talk to me one-on-one after the meeting is over. I'm happy to do that. And are there any questions? Yes, Chip.
With our children and youth ministry, we're underspending by over 10%, and with respect to outreach, we're significantly underspending, and those are two pretty important constituencies. And so I'd like to understand whether that's just a little bit of conservatism in turbulent times or other things are going on.
For the children's ministry, our challenge has been we've not been able to find someone to take over our nursery. Before COVID hit, we had a nursery every Sunday. We've advertised. Jessica has been working really hard because a number of our families really want that when they come to church, and we just haven't found somebody. So if you have a resource, if any of you know somebody who's looking to work a little bit on Sunday and pick up some PIN money, please do let us know. They have to pass all the background checks and everything, but we would really welcome that. For mission and outreach, it's customary that mission and outreach waits towards the end of the year before they expend their funds, because they try to respond to disasters as they come, but you never know what disaster is going to come next. And so those funds almost always, I can't remember the last time outreach didn't spend everything. So they'll make those up towards the end of the year.
And a big portion of our mission and outreach expenditures are deploying the proceeds of the art show, and that to the CRC and Primeros Pasos, and that traditionally has not been that check has not been cut until December, so.
Yeah,
that-
we're kind of an unusual congregation. We are blessed to have many members who are chronologically gifted. And part of that means that they are living off of a fixed income based upon their retirement and their investments. So our giving tends to come more towards the end of the year. This drives the diocese crazy because they'd like us to give in the beginning of the year or sooner. And we wait to the end of the year because that's when everybody's trying to get their charitable giving in before the end of the calendar year for their taxes. So if you've been in other parishes, when you come to St. Peter's, it's a little wonky the way things kind of wobble at the beginning and end of the year. So, yep.
Any other questions? And as I said, I'm happy to talk to anybody afterwards if they
All of the budgets and finances of the church are open to every member. So if you at any time have questions, Bruce and Kelly are very willing to meet with you and walk you through any portion of the budget you want to know more about. We endeavor for full transparency. So I do want to say a special word of thanks to the Financial Advisory Committee. Since I've come to the parish, before I've come to this parish, we've been fortunate to have folks with not a little bit of knowledge, but a great deal of knowledge about stock markets and investments. The current members of the FAC are stellar, just as those who've gone before them. Bruce has been an excellent leader as chair. Chip Beaverson is just coming on board, replacing a retiring member. Tara Russo, Minnie Shorter, Gordon Tanner, and Mary Lou Wellbrook-Reeves. Our thanks to all of you. You outperformed the diocese in handling our investments. And with all due respect to the trustees, and I'm one of the trustees for the diocese, so I have to give credit where credit is due. We are very fortunate to have your expertise and your leadership. So thank you, Bruce.
Thank you, Father Jeff. And I wish outperformance weren't defined by doing less bad. But that's, unfortunately, that's the world we live in right now. But hopefully we will outperform the diocese with our investments on the upside sometime soon. And I would like to thank Father Jeff and the vestry for this extraordinary opportunity to serve St. Peter's, and thank the entire congregation for its extraordinary generosity in these challenging times. It's made my job much easier. Thank you.
Is there any new business to come before the annual parish meeting of St. Peter's? Senior Warden. You're the Senior Warden. I just really
want to say something quickly.
Please.
And I didn't say anything, ask him ahead of time. But I just want to thank all of you. I've been a member here for 25, 30 years at St. Peter's. I've served on vestry a number of times. I've served as your Senior Warden a number of times. And I can't tell you what a gift it is to work with this congregation, and what a gift it is to have Jeffrey as our leader. He is beyond, and it has been my honor, and I really appreciate everything you do for all of us. You have no idea what goes on Monday through Sunday in his brain, in his life, and in our work as a congregation. And I just wanted to personally give you thanks. It's been an honor to serve all of you for all these years. I'm not going anywhere, but I'm old. So, thank you.
And I just want to say it's been a privilege to work with the vestry and with Tracy and with Sue and all the leadership of this parish. And I want to say a special word of thanks to our staff. We have the best staff in this diocese by far. With all due respect to some really great parishes, what we have in T.J. Thomas as our music minister, in Kelly as our parish administrator, in Jessica as our communications and family minister, and Bob Brehorst, and all of the associate clergy, and Deacon Larry, Carlisle, Mark, Ray, and Ted. We have an embarrassment of riches, and that really enables us to do the wonderful things that we're doing. And I just feel so blessed to be here. 18 years ago, I couldn't wait to join you and be part of this parish. And I have to say, my prayer daily to God is just leave me here until I retire. I'm very happy. So as long as you will put up with me, you're stuck with me. It's been a privilege to serve here at St. Peter's, and especially during COVID. The number of you who reached out to us personally, not just to me, but to members of the staff, and told us that you were praying for us. The number of you who kept up your pledges, even in the midst of a time that was financially challenging for you personally. The number of you who came out and made sure that there was still food in the cupboard, and made sure that there was still ministries going on in this place with Stephen Ministry and EFM and so many other things. It was just really awe-inspiring. And as I look around the diocese and I look at other churches and I see, you know, where they're struggling, I'm really thankful that this is where God has put me to serve all of you. So thank you. Any other new? There's a movement to adjourn. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those who are opposed, please stand if you're able. No, everybody stand. My friends, our lives are short. We do not have too much time to gladden the hearts of those who travel with us. So be quick to be kind, make haste to love, and always strive to forgive. And may the one who made us, and the one who loves us, and the one who travels with us, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, be upon you and all those you love, and even those who make you crazy, from now and forever. Amen. Amen. Deacon? Thanks be to God. Thank you, everyone.